Hello, listeners. Diana here. It seems that from start to finish, I have made empty promises about our scheduling. I said in the last episode that this week's episode was going to be our finale, but we have one more episode before our finale, which is today's episode called Dem Bitches, where we talk about the conversation we had with our abuser's former friend who reached out to us back in August of 2023. Okay, I think next week will be the finale. So please come back and listen to our reflections and some teasers for season 2.
Diana, I got your number from your resume on LinkedIn. My name is Sarah, and I'm an old student of... And like you, we had a relationship. I don't know the circumstances of your relationship with him, but it concerns me to see his behavior continued long after I knew him. I'm curious if you would be willing to talk to me about your experience. If not, I respect that.
Sarah, I am at a loss of words, but also have so much to say. Yes, I would love to talk to you about this. Were you a student in Iowa? This is Diana.
This is Sarah.
And this is Blooming After Grooming, our podcast. Hello and welcome back to Blooming After Grooming.
Hi, Diana.
Hi, Sarah. Are you ready to talk today? I think we teased this, but today we're going to talk about the person who texted us. Nope. The person, you know what? You're better. What are we talking about today?
Great start. Today we are going back and talking about our abuser's friend, former friend, who had reached out to us on Facebook. And we had talked about it in episode, what? Oh, little homework girl didn't do her fucking homework.
I didn't.
Shit, Diana. This seems like something you would
get my gold star.
That's right. No cupcake for you at nap time. Today we were talking about follow-up conversations we had with a former friend of our abuser who had reached out to us on Facebook years ago, back in 2023. We mentioned this person who we will be calling Judy for privacy's sake on the podcast. Oh, my brain just turned off. Oh, we mentioned her in the Reaching Out to Classmates episode. We think part 2. Possibly
Yes.
part 1. And we were very blunt about how we felt about Judy's original correspondence with us, which we did read in that episode, of not being happy about it and being very pissed off about it at the time. Because she's the only person that I can think of that was like a quote unquote friend of his or knew him outside of any relation to teaching that reached out to us besides one other woman who had dated him in the past, right? So we only had 2 people ever reach out to us that were not students or former students, correct?
Yeah, everyone else has been former students.
Yes. So Judy is the only, and she's the only person that reached out to us that never dated him and was never a student, like flat out. She's the only person that's ever reached out. So she reached back out to us after our podcast episode came out. And this episode is just us kind of following up on the experience of reconnecting with Judy, 2 years later after the initial Facebook message that did not go super awesome. Diana, what did you think when you first saw Judy's email come through after our episode had gone out?
Well, so I think her timing was pretty perfect because I'm pretty sure she reached out before the episode came out where we read the email, like right
Oh,
before.
yeah. Oh, that's
because
right.
then she sent the follow-up after that one, and that one was a little more spicy, as we like to say.
Spicy.
When she first sent, like, the first email that she had sent to us, I was very curious as to like how she found the podcast, and just like I was wondering like, okay, like has she been thinking about all of this like since then, and like I was very curious. I wasn't upset, I didn't feel like, oh no, like why is she contacting us again? But there was part of me that was thinking, what does she want? Like, what is her end goal here? But I would say yeah, curiosity was kind of my first feeling. What about you?
Yeah, I would agree. And I think kind of what does she want was our original response in 2023, right? We always kind of felt like, what are you trying to get out of this correspondence with us? But when she emailed before the episode came out, I couldn't remember if the episode where we had read her message had come out because obviously we're like recording, editing, and releasing these things like, kind of weeks in advance. And so kind of keeping track of what's already been out there has kind of been difficult. But her first message was very much like, I've been thinking about you guys and wondering about you and hoping that you've been doing okay. And, I've started processing my own feelings about my relationship. And I mean, relationship is like a person that she knew, not a romantic relationship, with this person. And I've, kind of had some of my own memories resurface about maybe some questionable behavior on his part. And I was like, "Okay, yeah, all right. Like, I need to get with Diana and like talk about this." And so, full disclosure, we have a joint email account and we both have lives and emails come in and like I'll read something and then like a day later Diana will read it or the other way around and then it might take us a few days to then connect with each other to like talk about the emails in which we have received. And so I was just kind of letting it sit there like, okay, that's fine. Like I'll talk to Diana about this sometime in the next 7 days and we'll decide how we want to like follow up with this person. And then the episode came out where we were like, that bitch, bop, 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 bop. And then we got a second email from Judy,
Yeah.
which
And it was
started with
very clear that she had heard the episode.
yes, because it started with, yes, I am that bitch. And I was like, oh, uh-oh. So
Uh,
I think it was probably our first, and I highly doubt our last experience of like, when you record things that you say and you put it out into the world, there might be some pushback or you might hurt people's feelings or people might not like the way that you're presenting them, which I think is good for us to experience. And again, I'm sure we will fucking ruffle feathers again. I think it's just my mind this whole time has been very much like, we're going to piss off our abuser. And I don't give a shit about that. So it was interesting to be like, oh, we pissed off somebody else that like wasn't even on my radar. I didn't think would ever find the podcast or like listen to it. How did you feel when you saw the second spicy email?
I could empathize, I could understand because yes, the first email that she sent was very much like just found your podcast and been listening to it and thinking of you and sending you guys good energy. And it was very supportive. It was very supportive. And then yeah, the second one, I wouldn't say like she was mean by any way, but you could tell
No.
that she was like hurt. And also like she did say, sorry if you thought that I was ever like defending him or that I was the enemy in some way. And that's something I thought about too. Is like, okay, yes, she feels hurt, but she's also still apologizing, it's some way. So like I
Mhm.
feel like she and I think you said it perfectly when we were talking about how to handle all this. Like she's looking to connect, but it's just like electronically it's not the way to do it. It seems for the three of us. I'm glad that she ended up reaching out the first time and the second time, that she wasn't then just like scared away or just felt completely villainized or, I'm glad that she
Mhm.
followed up and that it did provide an opportunity for the 3 of us to connect because it was a really good conversation and we
Mhm.
learned some things and, I think sh she had the chance to kind of express some of her concerns and we did have a chance to say sorry to her if she felt like she was used in any way and but also be able to say like, look, we're this is a podcast where we're talking about experience and that was an experience we had were the messages that you
Mhm.
sent and how we received them. But it was helpful to also like she shared a little bit about what was going on with her that August,
Mhm.
when she reached out and I can understand more of I mean, I've done it in my own way of like, I have all these feelings and I don't know what to do with them, so I'm just gonna send something out and see what happens.
Yep.
Like, that is literally
Yeah.
how I've moved through this process. There's a difference there in, like, who I was reaching out to and what I was asking from, but, like, I can definitely empathize with just being overwhelmed and wanting to do something, and,
Mhm.
I think the fact that she has acknowledged, like, yeah, the way I did it, I didn't go about it the best way, but my intent was a positive one, and it was one of support for you guys.
Yeah, I it was an interesting process just even getting to that Zoom call that we ended up doing, the 3 of us, because yeah, when the spicy email came in, Sarah's defenses went right back up again, and I was all like, "This bitch!" And I was all like, "Ba, ba, 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 ba," and I was talking to my husband about it, and I was hanging out with my friend Monica and, like, telling her about it, and I was just having, like, big feelings about it, but I couldn't just, like, let it go, and again, we hadn't responded yet, and I was out in my garden one day, like, whatever, weeding or something, and I just kept thinking about it, and I was like, "Why is this upsetting me so much? Like, why is this person like, from the get, like, why is this person upsetting me? And, like, what about this interaction isn't going well?" And, for me, I think I instead of focusing on that, I really pivoted towards, like, the whole point of what we're trying to do with this podcast is create conversation and create community. And here's this person reaching out and trying to have a conversation with us and create some kind of community, even if it's just the 3 of us in a conversation. And my instinct is like, "Get away from me. No." And it's like, "Well, that's weird. Like, that's a strange reaction that you're having." And so I just took a lot of time to really kind of process why I was feeling the way that I was feeling. And I ended up sending back a very, very long email to her from our group email that just kind of explained, yeah, like where I was coming from, and also acknowledging that I didn't love where I was coming from. Like, I didn't love that that was the instinct that I was having, you
Mm.
know?
Yeah.
But that at least for myself, and not to like try to blame everything on this, but like, and I said it in the email, it was just like, when you have been abused, it makes you question your own instincts, and it makes you feel like you don't know who you can and cannot trust. And then it can make you very guarded and have a hard time trusting people, and or if you feel like somebody has harmed you in some way, very unlikely that you're going to let that person back in afterwards, because you're, or at least for me, like my brain and my body is very much like, don't fuck it up again. Like, this
Mm.
person hurt you and you let them back in, or you saw this red flag and you ignored it. So now for the rest of your life, you have to have hypervigilance about these things. And I feel like that's where my like intense reaction to her was kind of coming from after her spicy email the second time, right? It was like it was just like a defensive response that I was having. So it just felt good to be able to kind of like work through that. And she ended up emailing back after that. And that's when we decided to meet for our Zoom meeting. And then when we got on the call, I feel like she tried to start like rehashing. And I was like, let's not do that. Like, I was like, we don't need to talk about how you didn't approach us well the second time, the first time, and maybe we didn't handle you well on the podcast. I was like, let's just move forward. Like, we don't need to rehash the ways that we pissed each other off before today, because I feel like we kind of covered it in the email correspondence. But I'm proud of ourselves for like working through that awkwardness and getting to the point where we could talk to her.
Mhm. Me too, and I agree. I'm glad that I think that you handled that really well of pivoting and getting us kind of away from starting to get in that cycle. But I did want to I could tell that there were feelings on her end. Like I could tell
Mhm.
she was hurt. And as a trained person in restorative practices, like I do believe in repairing harm. And even though I do feel like our reaction was justified to the original Facebook message back in
Mhm.
2023, knowing that she felt hurt or felt, yeah, just hurt, as I wanted to be able to apologize in some way. And when she brought up the whole idea of like, her family being protective of her,
Mm.
and not wanting her to feel, or not wanting us to use her, not wanting her to feel used,
Mhm.
I felt like that was something that I could apologize for. I'm not sorry about the way that I responded to you back in the day, in 2023. And as we talked about, like my response was a little less spicy that time. Um, so, like, I'm not sorry about that, but I am sorry if you feel like you were used in this way. So
Mhm.
I think that I didn't wanna, like, just spend that call kind of doing nothing but repairing harm, but I did want to acknowledge it, and I'm glad that there was that opportunity at the end.
Yeah. I think it's a good point. I think sometimes Yeah, I don't know, it's hard. It's like we're doing so much work talking about, like, heavy shit and processing heavy shit that I feel like I don't know if you experience this, but I feel like sometimes I'm just like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, heavy shit. Anyways, continue," because I'm, like, been in this, like, fucking interstate 80 miles an hour mode for, like, so long now that sometimes I just, like, speed bump over things because 'cause I'm just like, "Yeah, on to the next fucking let's just
Oh, yeah.
trauma dump to the next part." And so I appreciate that you are good about being like, let's just go back around to where we just were a little bit. Maybe let's slow our roll and actually walk through that a little bit. But also, I didn't want us to, yeah, spiral into like some. Because I also was a little concerned because it was like the first 5 minutes of conversation. I was also concerned that if we started rehashing what had happened, it was going to turn into like an argument or something and go sideways. And which we all three acknowledged when we got on the call. I think we all three were like, this is uncomfortable. And we are all a little nervous because our correspondences had not gone well. But I really think it was like because it was written. I think something was
Mhm.
getting lost in translation because once we were all talking, it was perfectly fine. I didn't feel like we were
Yeah.
on the verge of a fight or anything when we were like on a call together.
Yeah, and I appreciated your, how before, like, we even got on the call, like, the week before, you were saying how, like, you had nothing planned the rest of the day, like, after the call, and how you had purposely scheduled it to be kind of at the end of the day, because that's a blind spot for me of sometimes I also get in that mode of, like, "Let's just do the next thing, and the next thing, and the next thing," and schedule as many things as possible in one day just to get things done. Hearing your plan on how you were gonna take care of yourself that day, because that encouraged me to also think about, well, how am I going to take my care of myself um, on this day? And I know we had talked about like an exit plan as far as what that self care is going to look like after,
Mhm.
when we exit, but also an exit plan of if things are just not going well and it is going to turn into a fight, how we're going to just, back away slowly or just hit that exit button. But luckily
Yeah.
we didn't need to do that, and it
No,
went well.
it
And
did go well.
yeah, and I was unsure at first because she was, like, in a brewery, I think she said, and you could
Mhm.
definitely hear, like, that there were people in the background and stuff, and at first I was thinking, like, "Oh, this is kind of an interesting place to have this really intense personal conversation," but, then I was thinking, and I kind of was trying to, comment on, to her, like, hopefully you have someone that you can talk to about this, or it sounds
Mhm.
like your husband's supportive, but some kind of community. So I was thinking, like, it sounded like she knew the people there, so maybe that
Mm.
was her support system that day of like people that she knows there being like, how did that go, are you okay?
Yeah,
And so yeah, I personally would probably not do it that way, but if that's what she needed for her self-care that day,
sure.
you know yeah.
Yeah, when I realized she was in a public place, I was like, "Is she gonna actually be able to tell us anything?" Because
Yeah.
yeah, I had the same thought process, but it seemed fine, and sometimes I think people feel more comfortable in a situation like that because they assume people aren't paying attention to them because you're, like, in public and people are doing their own thing, having their own conversations, but, yeah, I will say for as much as I was like, "I'm gonna not schedule anything else," and, I mean, I guess it all worked out. My self-care plan turned into me pretty much freak out crying for about 45 minutes after we got off the call with her, not because of her, to be very fucking clear. I was not mad at Judy, but I was very, very triggered by, some of the conversations that we had with her about our abuser and the things that he was saying about us to her.
Where's my stress ball? Yeah, feeling triggered because of the shit that he was. God damn it. Yeah.
Yes. So, and it's funny because I told like my sister and a few other people about the things that she told us in the conversation, and ironically, those people very much did to me what I would do to them, which was like, "Well, why did she tell you that? Like, why did she think that you wanted to know that?" And I was like, "Oh no, no, no. We asked her." I was like, "To be clear, we specifically wanted to know what he was saying about us." And then people are kind of like, "Oh, well, why the fuck would you wanna know that?" And I was like, "That's a good question. I don't know." I don't know. It
Huh.
didn't help anything. I maybe just morbid curiosity.
Well,
Uh,
yeah, I like telling a story. I like, documenting
yeah.
shit. I want all the details. I want to know what he's saying to drag my name through the mud. Okay, he
Mhm.
wants to talk about how I'm crazy. He wants to talk about how like mentally unstable I am. I will talk about
Yeah.
mental health and my mental health issues and the treatment and how great it's helped me and all those things. Like I it was yeah, so I want to that's also why I want to know.
Yes. Oh, and it's all just such cliche shit, right? Like, yeah, saying like, "Oh, well, she was crazy." It's like, "Oh my god, fucking classic." That's what men do to women, right? It's like, "Oh, I treated you like shit. I pushed you to the breaking point, and then you flipped out or had a breakdown or something, and now I'm going to call you crazy." Or you're telling the truth and I don't like it, so I'm going to call you crazy to discredit you. It's just such
Mhm.
cliche behavior. And then he had also told her that originally that you had just found me as some random ex former student of his, and that the two of us had cooked up this lie together, which doesn't even make any sense. Like, how would you A, find me? B, how would you just find some former students like, yeah, sure, I'll totally lie with you about this, make up all this. That sounds great. Like, that doesn't even make any sense. And then it sounded like she pushed back and it was kinda like, that doesn't really make sense. And then he was like, "Okay, well, yeah, I dated Sarah." It was in both cases, he lied and said that it was after we graduated and said that I came from a bad home because my parents are divorced, I guess.
And
I
that you
I
had
don't
a crush on him.
and that I had a crush on him. Well, same with you, right? We both had crushes on him and we pursued him, and he's just a poor helpless dummy that fell for us, but not until we had graduated. Like, just such bullshit. And she clearly, like, was catching on to that. And so that's the point of all this is those were the conversations she was having with him in 2023 when she reached out to
Mm,
us. So she was
mhm.
like getting gaslit super hard. And a part of her was figuring out that he was lying to her and she was trying to put the puzzle pieces together.
He reached out to her specifically about
Oh, that's
this
right.
because she is really involved with the union because she is also an educator. And so he was trying to get some help from her. And yeah, when she was starting to kind of put things together, because didn't you say that he didn't know that she knew about you right away? Because the lawsuit isn't your lawsuit, it's my lawsuit. So, like, when they were
Yeah.
talking about everything, it was just about me.
Well, she said that he had mentioned something that there were allegations or accusations in Iowa or something, and he was being very vague about it. And she had found my name because we were connected on Facebook and some kind of comment I made on something of yours. I don't know, whatever. She figured out that I was the person in Iowa or assumed that I was. And that's when she reached out to us. But she told us the other day that when she mentioned my name to him, that he like flew off the handle and was like super flustered and upset and like cutting her off and being really aggressive with her. And that tickled me honestly.
That
And but I told her I was like, it pisses me off because that's what I had hoped would happen with the police. Like I really
yeah.
was hoping that when they said my name to him in the police station, that would be his like, "Oh fuck, I've been caught" moment. And it didn't work with the police, but it apparently worked with her for some reason. Like, but I think what she said is like she realized that he realized that like it was falling apart, right? Like he couldn't keep lying to her. Like she was figuring it out. And then he just lashed out and started acting like a dick, which is
Gosh.
what narcissistic shitheads do. So
I kind of I mean, yes, it would have been super nice for him to talk himself in a corner like that with the police, but I am not upset that it was between someone that he kind of actually cares about, you know what I mean? Like,
mhm,
this was a friend. Oh, and I should clarify, Judy made it a point to let me know that she would not consider herself a childhood friend of his because
mhm.
she met him when she was 16 and he was 20, so he wasn't a child per se. They were, longtime friends, but
Yeah.
yeah, she would not consider herself a childhood friend. So I just wanted to clarify that.
So yeah, she reached out to us in the midst of kind of the facade of who she thought he was kind of falling apart is when she reached out to us. Which in retrospect now makes total sense like the message that she sent us because she was trying to like compile information, and, like, in reality was probably really trying to compile information to, like, throw in his face or kind of, like, defend against his lies, but at the time, to us, without the context, came off like she was questioning our stories, you know what I mean? So, it was good to hear kind of the backstory on that. But the backstory was very upsetting. I feel like I was really mad after that call about him, and just listening to the way that he was, like, trying to defend his behavior, because apparently she had kinda called him out about his relationship with you when you guys were still dating way back in the day. And she had tried to say, she's a lot younger than you, 16 years younger than you. Like, what do you have in common with this person? This is kind of weird. And he had said to her, the heart wants what the heart wants, which is disgusting. And then he said the exact same thing to her in 2023 when she was asking him about me. And she
Ugh.
said that that's when she knew that it was all a lie. She's like, "That's when I knew." Like, he was a creep, and he was just justifying his urges to abuse minors by trying to call it love or romance.
Mhm. Ugh, that makes me so it's so cringy and it's so
Mhm.
lazy. Like, the heart wants what the heart wants. Come on. I can only imagine. I think we've all felt something similar of that feeling when you just know
Mhm.
someone is not who you thought they were. I know we were both curious to know how that friendship ended and if it was like a petering out kind of ghosting situation or I'm done with you, bitch situation. And it was the latter.
It was
um
the latter, yeah.
that tickles me too. That tickles because I don't know how many people in his life are holding him accountable, are
Yeah.
having these conversations of like, you made the mistake, you fucked up. Stop blaming them." I'm glad that she did. That she was maybe the only one in his life that was able to have that conversation with him or try to before he hung up on her. Didn't he hang up on her? I want to say she said he hung up on her.
I can't remember who hung up on who, but she did say she sent him a letter afterwards where she, like,
Yes.
kinda said her last piece to him. Yeah, including the statement of, like, I think there is something wrong with you, and I think you need to seek help. Like, you need to go to a therapist. Like, there is something not okay with the way that you are behaving and the way that you are justifying it to yourself. And I completely agree, because I have absolutely zero belief his family has held him accountable at all based off of what you and I know about them. They never said a word to me. They never said a word to my family when I was brought to their houses when I was a month out of high school and still had braces on. They never said a word to you when he brought you to their houses, saying you're not the first student he's brought here. They kept that from you for years. It's really fucked up to just think about. I feel like when we started this podcast, we talked about it more. And then I feel like we've kind of gone down the rabbit hole of the details of our abuse. But, like, that's a system that supported his abuse. You know what I mean? His family is a system that turned a blind eye to it. And I don't know that and we, were told that he was living with his mom when, like, he was on paid administrative leave and then some of the investigative stuff was happening. And I don't know, maybe she was really disappointed with him and read him the riot act, but the way it sounds, when you hear that, is very much like mommy just let him back in the door and, comforted him through this hard time that he's having. I hope she fucking yelled at him. Like, I hope she called him out and questioned his behavior, but I'm not gonna hold my breath about it. So it was nice to talk to somebody that actually, yeah, did it and
Mhm.
said, "Dude, there is something wrong with you. Like, you're not okay. Like, the things you have done are not okay. They're morally and legally fucked, and you shouldn't have done them." Because she also told us that his brother was cyber stalking both of us and, like, reporting back to our abuser about
I
the
knew he
things he
was.
saw,
I
which I was like,
remember
"Go ahead."
I remember the teacher saying to me that his brother was good at that kind of thing, that his brother could find information on anyone, and so I had a feeling like, "Oh, he's probably having his brother look at our shit."
Which, you know what I say to that? Enjoy, motherfucker. Look at every
You're welcome.
single piece of it. I hope that it helps you realize what your brother did to us. I hope you read every post. I hope you looked at every single piece of artwork I made. I hope you read every fucking comment about your brother. And I hope that you feel somewhat shitty for standing by and not saying a fucking thing to anybody while you watched him bring teenage girls into your family's homes. That's all I got to say about that. That does not bother me. I'm like, you know what? Fine.
Yeah.
Look, report back. I hope there's a fucking newsletter that your entire family has to read. Enjoy. Got nothing to hide. Don't give a shit. Also, it's not hard. It's called Googling. Web sleuthing is not hard, guys. Any lady with 30 minutes on her hands can find just about any piece of information about anybody. So it's not that big of a flex.
I don't know if I told the story in any of the episodes yet, but I think I told you about how when we were starting to talk about telling our families that he was talking to his mom and kind of like trying to brush around it and tell her without really telling her about
Mm,
me. Cause like he talked to his parents about me, like how we would hang out and go to Chicago and whatever, whatever, but he hadn't officially, like, told them that I was his girlfriend, and so when he was telling his mom, he said something like, "You know the score, right?" Or like, "But you know the score," and that's how he told her, and it's just such a weird thing to say, like, looking back
like
at it
you
now.
like you know that I abused her. Like you're just like you know what I do.
Yeah,
Like we've been here
yeah,
before because they had been there before. I was in their house. I met his mom, his dad, his brother, his sister, their spouses, kids. I met them all. Grandma. I had a nice cuppa with his sweet little grandmother, who was quite a nice little lady, I will say,
she
from what I
was.
remember.
Yeah,
Uh yeah, like I met them all and you met them all. So yeah, that
mhm,
sounds to me like it's very much like, well, you know what I'm doing
yeah.
because I've done it before.
So gross, and that she was
It
just
is so
like,
gross.
"Yeah, I know the score." I think that's if I remember correctly, that was her response was, "Yeah, I know the score."
That's such a bummer, dude. And it
Yeah.
brings up such an interesting question of like, I don't know. It's not even a question. I mean, obviously I have a very strong opinion about it because of my lived experience, but like, yeah, and I think we've had this conversation on the pod before. But if my family member fucking showed up and they were a teacher and they're like, here is my student who I'm fucking, I would be like, get the fuck out of my house. I am never talking to you again. Like there would be no part of me that would hold space for that. It's such fucked up behavior. I
Mhm.
don't know how you would just stand by and say nothing. And to our but I think we've said this before. It's like, we don't know. Maybe they did. Maybe they said something to him. They surely didn't say anything to us.
Another reason why I was open to having a call with Judy was because I am curious to know how far back did these behaviors start? Like, she knew
Mhm.
him at a time when he was younger, so I was just really curious to get an idea of like a sense of who he was back then. And honestly, it sounds like from the get, he was just unpleasant and an
Mhm.
asshole and like an
Yeah.
instigator. I don't want to go into too much detail about like her own experiences with him, but I think he was like this from the beginning, waiting until the 18th birthday
Yeah.
to make a
Yes.
move.
There was an unfortunate 18th birthday tie through between the three of us, I would say, as far as paying a little bit too much attention to young girls' 18th birthdays.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, which I think is fascinating, because it just because bring in that question of like, where was that line for him ever? Or yeah, like when did he start to blur the lines? Or, has he always just been perpetually attracted to teenage girls and has just never transitioned out of that mode ever? But then we did have a age appropriate woman that he dated at least long distance for a while reach out to us. And I was thinking the other day, he had a like will they won't they thing with one of the other teachers at my school before my abuse started. Cause I remembered, I was like, oh yeah, he made me like pass love notes between the two of them, like across the school. Like I remember him literally being like, can you run this to so and so's classroom?
Don't do that, teachers. Don't do
It's
that.
so weird. Like in retrospect, like they had phones, they could have
Yeah.
texted each other. Does it make any sense?
Yeah,
Yeah.
no.
And I totally looked at the note because I was like 15. So of course I was going to. And it was something like, oh, will you go out to dinner or what are you doing tonight or something like that. I don't know if they ever actually dated, but like, yeah. So I don't know. Like, and so she would have been age appropriate. But again, it's still like the way that you're going about it isn't appropriate. Like you're still You
Mm.
know what I mean? Like involving a teenager in some way.
The whole passing notes thing, like, using you and, like, he must have known, like, "Oh, she's gonna read this." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, he knew what he was doing, and I thought about moments in the past where I remember he pointed out a teacher to me. He was like, "That's the one teacher who I would consider going on a date with." And now I'm like thinking, "Well, why were you telling me that, when I was a junior? Why were you
Mhm.
telling me, like, was it to make me jealous? Is it to, like,
Mm.
open the door to talk to me about relationships?" Yeah.
The point of this was Judy. Yes. So in the end, we had a good talk with Judy. I'd say we made peace. I think we made peace. I think everyone's feeling good. She followed up with us after the meeting. And it was ironic because I remember she like emailed and she's like, I feel better already. And I was literally like in my house, like rage screaming and just being like, "Ugh," and I was like, good for you. I'm so glad you feel better. But I wasn't mad at her. I was mad
Yeah.
at him. But yeah, so I'm glad that we worked through it because I think it's just a good example of like, and the reason we want to talk about it in this follow-up episode is just the idea of like this is part of the process, right? Like this whole podcast is us just talking about the process of facing all this and working through it and and other people coming forward and reaching out to us is a part of it. And whether we handle it well or don't handle it well is a part of it. And so we just wanted to kind of, share that with our listeners, I guess, of like, this is a situation that like was very rocky and did not get off to a great start. Um, but I think all three of us did a great job of working through it and being vulnerable and like owning our shit and owning the way we were feeling about things. And I think it's also just like a really good example of how trauma shows itself in people, right? Like it manifests in different ways in all of us. And even if we're all on the same team, because we're all team fuck that guy, right? She's not on his side. Like she is very much like this guy is problematic. You can still end up kind of turning on each other, you know what I mean? Or like hurting each other in different ways. And so I think I'm just really proud of us that we were able to work through it.
Me too. I am too. And I she also, much like Mac, and other people in the past who I had feelings of jealousy towards. A Judy would her name would come up in the quote unquote relationship between me and the teacher. And so I feel like same kind of thing with Mac of like I feel like I kind of already knew her, but I just knew like this very skewed idea of her that is tainted with trauma and abuse and so
Mhm.
it was I'm grateful for this opportunity and the opportunities I have had to make amends of sorts with people who had no idea that they were having any impact in my life and being able to move past it. So yeah, I'm glad that we had the conversation and I felt better afterwards. And yeah, who knows? Maybe Judy will agree to be on the podcast in season 2 and should she choose, share her own story of her side of things.
I think there's something valuable in being able to connect and actually get to represent ourselves, right? Because she had only
Yeah,
been represented to you through him, and we had only been represented to her through him.
that's true.
So you were a crazy person. I was like a Iowa hick hillbilly, meth family. I don't fucking know. And she was however he presented her to you, So
Which
I think
was
there was
yeah.
also, which was,
I was just to say which wasn't the truth because he presented her to me as just a longtime friend. He never told me that he had any interest in her, which
yeah.
he did.
Yep. And so I think there's just like a lot of power in just being able to connect on our own terms and like represent ourselves without the filter of our abuser. I think
Yeah.
there's
Yes.
power in that. Cause fuck that
That's
guy.
yeah. Fuck that puto.
Yeah. So we're going to name this episode Dem Bitches
Dem
since all three
bitches.
of us were that bitch at some point within this situation.
And now we're all just badass bitches.
Yeah. And, Judy, if you're listening, I hope you know we use bitch in a lot of different ways on this podcast. So, dem bitches is a good thing this time around.
Yes. Yes, exactly. Tina Fey's character in Mean Girls likes to say, there's enough men out there calling us sluts and whores, so let's not call each other sluts and whores. I mean, that's not to say let's not call each other bitches, but let's all be united against the patriarchy.
It's true.
There are some times when women are problematic, but in
This
situations
is
like
true.
this, where we could bridge a gap by just having conversation, take
Mhm.
advantage of those opportunities. Maybe that's the homework.
I think that's great homework,
Yeah.
especially in these fucking borderline Civil War times in which we live. Check yourself before you wreck yourself, right? Maybe take a beat and think about whether or not your response is productive, right? Could you be doing better? Do you like the way you're responding to a person or a situation? And can you sit down and work through it? And you might not be able to, because guess what? You can only do half of that work. And I think that's what was cool about this experience is all three of us came to the table very much willing to do the work equally. And that's why it worked. So kudos to you. Kudos to me. Kudos to Judy. Badass bitches. Very nice. Very, very well done, guys. Therapy works. Yay.
Yes.
Thank you to our therapist. Very nice.
Oh God, for real. For real. I do not know where I would be today without my therapist.
Well, that's what the money's for, right? That's how we thank them. We pay them many dollars to listen to us talk about our feelings. But yeah, so I think that's a good homework assignment. And I think that's all for today. Huh?
Yeah, that's all for today. And I guess our next episode is going to be the last one, which is going to be season 1 reflections and
Oh
season
my
2
goodness.
teasers. And we got
Can
some
you
good teasers for you.
I can't believe we're almost done with season 1. It's a hell of a trip, man.
It's been about 3 months, 3 months of
Mhm.
a lot of good things. I would say like mostly good things. Yeah, with this
Yeah.
podcast. But it has been a lot of work and there are busy times on the horizon for both of us.
Mhm.
So we're
Mhm.
going to take a little break, but we're really 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 excited about season 2.
Yeah.
But you'll just have to listen to our season finale to hear updates about season 2.
Okay.
Okay, goodbye.
Okay, bye. I'm so
And
sorry.
this
I feel like I
boob
just
is bigger than this boob.
This boob, I think mine are pretty even. I'm sure one's bigger than the other, but I think
Fuck you. No, they're not. No, they're not.
What?
There's no way that there's always one that's bigger. I take back my fuck you. That was very aggressive.
Your masculine side was coming out.